Hi guys, welcome to Scott Family Homestead. I'm excited to do this video today because this is a project that anybody can do, whether you're homesteading or not. This project is an awesome way to get into canning and preserving your own food. It's going to save you some money. I'm going to show you how to can salsa, but we're going to purchase everything that we need to do it. So even if you're not growing a garden, even if you don't live on a farm, or even if you live in the city and you have no way of growing your food, you can do this. You can can salsa. So I picked up tomatoes at our local farmer's market. I bought a 25-pound box of canning tomatoes. I've used some of them already. I have 17 pounds in here left. So this is going to be for our salsa. I have jars, but I'm going to price this out at the end, and I'm going to do an entire breakdown of making the salsa, including purchasing jars. So if you are brand new to canning, that will be included in the price, and you're going to see that you will actually save money even buying all of the items. The last thing that we're going to use is Mrs. Wage's salsa mix. I like the medium. It makes an excellent salsa. The kids love it. It's not too hot. If you buy it in the canister, you get the most bang for your buck. This makes 14 pints. If you wanted to forego the jars and freeze this recipe, you could do that as well. That will save you even more money because honestly, jars are kind of expensive right now. You're going to be paying about $1 a jar. So between the tomatoes, the mix, we'll need a tiny bit of vinegar. We'll need 1 1/3 cup vinegar, and we'll get to that. And then we're going to water bath can it today, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I have a water bath canner. You can get these for about $25. If it's not in your budget to do that right now, you can also use a stock pot as long as it has a lid. So a lot of people have what they need for the actual canning portion in their homes already. You just need a big stock pot. So these are really nice just because of the size of it and how many you can fit in here. You have to do 2 batches with this, so I'm going to use my pressure canner, just do them both at one time just for ease. But if you're using the water bath canner or a stock pot, you're not going to be able to fit 14 pints in all at once. So for you, you would do it in 2 batches. You can mix it all up at once, and I'll walk you through all that. But if you invest in a water bath canner, then you can do up to 9 pints at a time, which will make things go a little bit faster if you decide to continue with canning. Mrs. Wage's also has the option of packets. Those make 5 pints, so it's about 1/3 of this recipe. And I have used that as well, and it works out great. And you can do it all within a small stock pot. For those 5 pints, you're paying a little bit more per pint than if you go with the big guy. Okay, so let's get started. You are buying from a farmer's market, choosing a variety of tomato to grow for this purpose. If you're going to do crushed tomatoes or whole tomatoes or salsa, you want one that's going to grow a beefsteak type tomato. I do have a few in here that are more like aroma type, and this is fine. These will work great, but it's a lot more appealing and a lot less tomato for all that work. So these nice big ones are awesome. Step 1 is to prep and peel your tomatoes. So I have water boiling, and I've got an ice bath ready back there. And I'm going to go ahead and wash these, and I'm going to start getting these prepared to peel. So all you're going to do is remove the core, and you can go however deep you decide you want to on this. So just a little paring knife. Okay, and then on the bottom I just do an X. Once it's been in the heat for a while, each of these little triangles will start to peel. Then you put them in the ice water, and then this will peel right off. So this is ready to go into the boiling water. I'm going to do a whole bunch of these, and the cores will go to the chickens. You can also take the cores and the skins and put them in your dehydrator or freeze dryer if you have one. This has a lot to it, and what you can do is actually turn that into a powder that you can add a little bit of water to it, and it makes like a tomato paste. So if you want to go no waste on this, you absolutely can. Just keep all of your little parts. Water is boiling. I've got all my tomatoes back here. I've got my ice bath. So I'm going to use a slotted spoon, or this one's just like a little skimmer. And I'm going to put probably about 4 in at a time. And you can time this if you want, but I usually just go by looks, so it'll take about a minute. You'll start to see the skin kind of peel away or split open. This one actually happened right away. I'll show you. You can see it is split right there, and that means you can peel it. So, and into the ice bath. And you can refresh your water for boiling and your ice water as needed. And then just keep it going until you've done all 17 pounds. So yeah, I load that one up, and in the minute it takes for those to start to peel, I'll go ahead and peel these skins off. And then these are headed right over back to the counter where I will roughly chop them and put them into a stock pot. All of my tomatoes are peeled. I'm going to dice them up and get them into a stock pot. But first I'm going to get my canner going. So if you're going to can this and not freeze it, now is a good time to get this going because you want it to be warm by the time you're putting your hot salsa in it. This recipe you are canning hot salsa, so it needs to go into hot jars in a hot canner. So your canner, regardless of whether or not you're using a stock pot or a canner like this, it needs to have some kind of rack. You just can't have your jars sit directly on the bottom, so they need to sit on top of something. So I'm going to fill this up with water about the depth of a jar. I'm also going to put jars with water in them in here, and we're going to bring the whole thing up to temperature all together. I'm also getting some jars put into my pressure canner that I'm just going to use as a water bath. We're not going to pressure can in this. The whole thing makes 14 pints, so I usually throw in 1 or 2 extra just in case. I'm using wide mouth jars. Doesn't matter, you can use narrow mouth if you'd like. You can even can this into quarts if you prefer. Then you can do it in 1 canner lid. If, say you have this canner running and you can't put jars in here to get them up to temperature again, you can also put them in your dishwasher and get them to that really hot cycle so that you're pulling out hot jars out of the dishwasher. That's also warm enough to be packed. As a result of peeling, I've got all these peels. I'm going to drain the water off of this and add the cores to this, and this will go to the chickens. So today's trash is tomorrow's eggs. Directions say to chop these up into diced tomatoes. They could be fairly large chunks. Now, let's say that you don't have a good way to source 17 pounds of tomatoes. That's okay. You can sub 17 cans, the 14-ounce cans, of petite diced tomatoes and still make your salsa. You're going to end up with a delicious salsa. It's probably going to cost a little bit more, but you also have learned a skill. You'll be able to do this and make your own salsa. So I'm just going to layer this in there just so it's easier to stir in, just like nice big chunks. Into the stock pot it goes. Okay, here it is. I've got all of my tomatoes and my entire pack of Mrs. Wages. Now I'm going to add some vinegar. The recipe calls for 1 1/3 cups, so I'm going to get that vinegar put in here, and then I'm going to bring this up to a boil and then cook it for 10 minutes. Cutting your tomatoes nice and large is fine because as this cooks for 10 minutes, it's going to kind of break down those bigger chunks. Okay, really quick, I want to talk about a few things that are helpful for canning. You can get a canning kit that has all of these items in it and more, but a canning funnel is really helpful. A jar lifter. You do need something to remove bubbles. I just use like a small spatula, and then you're going to need a wet rag to wipe your rims. So my jars are really hot right now. You can tell they're actually boiling, so I'm going to turn that down. And I've got a few more minutes on my salsa. It's cooking down here, so it's boiling pretty good. I'm going to let it simmer for a little bit longer, and then we'll start removing the jars. If you want, you can be done with the salsa right here. This is, as soon as your 10 minutes is up, this is salsa that's ready to go. So you could serve this. That's a lot of salsa. But you could serve some if you want. You could freeze the rest, or you could can it at this point. So as soon as the 10 minutes of simmering is done, your salsa is finished. But we're going to water bath it. Okay, I've got my hot salsa. I've got hot jars. I've got a funnel. I've got a wet rag to wipe rims with. I've got brand new lids. You need to use brand new lids, or so that's the recommendation. However, the rings you can reuse. So I've got a pile of rings here. I'm going to begin to ladle this into the jar. And you need to leave a 1/2 inch headspace, which means you need to leave space at the top. Don't fill it all the way to the top, but leave a 1/2 inch. You can use a measuring tool for this, or you can eyeball it, but you want to make sure you're as close as possible to 1/2 inch. Stir this once more. Now I'm just going to make sure there aren't any bubbles. And then if you do have a lot of bubbles come up, you'll want to adjust this, add a little bit more salsa to make sure headspace is still a 1/2 inch. So the next step is to wipe your rims, make sure they're really nice and clean. Okay, now you're going to take your new lids, take your rings, and put these on fingertip tight. Okay. I'm only going to fit 8 in here. The water needs to be about 1 inch above your jars, which mine is. So as soon as this gets to boiling, I can start my timer. This mix calls for 40 minutes and then adjust for altitude. So in our area, we're going to go 41 minutes. I'm going to get to cleaning up the kitchen while that goes. But just to clarify a few things, I am using my pressure canner as a water bath canner. The lid is not secured all the way on. It is set on just like a water bath canner would. There's going to be no pressure in there. It's not going to be venting through the hole, or at least it shouldn't be, because it should be able to have enough air escaping as it is. That one is still getting up to temperature, and I won't start the timer on that one until it is fully boiling. This one I've already got the timer going on. If you put your jars in the canner and there isn't a good 1 to 2 inches of water above them, you will need to add some water. So go ahead and do that before you bring it back up to boiling. So add your water, get it to the right height, and then get your water boiling and start your timer. The last thing to note is that I actually got 16 pints from this recipe. So it says that it makes 14 pints. I did throw an extra couple of jars in there before we started, just in case I ended up with a little bit more. And they were very useful because I was able to fill all of them. So I ended up with 16 pints from this recipe, which is 2 canner loads. If you're doing it as 2 separate canner loads, one after the next, you want to bring your salsa back up to a boil before you put it in the second load of jars. Okay, my first canner is done, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to remove the lid off of this, and then you just want to let it kind of sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. Make sure you are steaming it out the back, not towards you. Okay, I'm going to let this sit. Okay, it's been 8 minutes, which means my other canner is done, so I'm going to turn that one off. Carefully remove the top of that. The original one has been sitting for a while now, and I can begin to remove these jars. You want to keep them nice and level. We're just going to pull those out and set them off to the side. You will hear these start to seal. When the little button goes down, it will pop. These will sit on the counter for 12 to 24 hours, and you're going to want to make sure every single one of them seals. If you have one that doesn't, you can put it in the fridge and eat it within the next week. After 12 to 24 hours, you're going to take the rings off, wipe these clean, label them, and they are ready for the pantry. She's my little tomato eater. Nobody else in the family likes them. Okay, so I did the cost breakdown. And for each of these jars, it comes out to about $3 a jar. So the tomatoes are about $1 a pound. If you do canned petite diced tomatoes, those are also, I think the Great Value brand was 96 cents per can. So you get $17 of tomatoes. Jars are about $1 a piece. The Mrs. Wages mix is $7. A little bit of vinegar, And then you've got to buy your lids. So it comes to $3.14 per jar, and that's if you're buying absolutely everything just for this project. Now let's compare it to store-bought. Keep in mind that this is August 2023. Tostitos brand is running $4.42. If you buy a pint fresh from Walmart, it's $3.43. And the Great Value brand is running anywhere from $2.50 to $3 a jar, depending on what style you get and what flavor. Is that good? And so you are saving a little bit of money unless you're going with the Great Value brand. But definitely if you've already got the jars, or if you're growing the tomatoes and you got tomatoes on hand, then you're going to save money on this and learn a really cool skill. That is it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. We are also on Facebook and Instagram, so make sure you're keeping up to date with us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.